In today's video, we're going to walk through how to set up Adobe Experience Manager with Adobe Commerce. This is going to allow us to access components that are not available normally with AEM. This is also going to allow us to actually pull data from Adobe Commerce and render it very easily within our Adobe Experience Manager instance. I am, of course, assuming that for this video, you have already set up a local author server, and I'm running the cloud version of AEM on Mac OS. All right, so the first thing that we're going to want to do here is just go ahead and clone the code for the Venia project, just like you would with the weekend project. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new terminal window, list out where I am, change directories into my desktop, and I also have an AEM folder. From there, I'm going to create a directory, mkdir, for tutorial-venia. Change directories into that. And then I'm just going to say git clone with my URL here. That's going to clone the project for me. I now have the project. You can see if I cd into AEM SIF and list out, I've got all of my normal AEM folders. I'm just going to go ahead and close this for now, as well as this one. All right, so now we have this code on our computer, but we have not deployed it to AEM. I'm going to come over here to my IDE where I have the project. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new terminal window. For me, within VS Code, that's just Control tilde. And I'm just going to say mvn clean install p auto install single package. That's going to install all of the folders, the front end and the back end, to our running Adobe Experience Manager author environment. I am also just going to add this flag dskip tests because I found that there are some test failures on the current version of this project when I cloned it, and I don't really care for the tutorial about the Java unit tests, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip those so that my build can execute. For you, I'm sure you've seen this command if you've worked with Adobe Experience Manager before, but I will in future videos go into depth about what each of these little strings is for. All right, as this is building, I'm just going to go back to my browser here. In order to run the Adobe Commerce integration, which is called the Commerce Integration Framework, also known as the SIF framework, I am going to need to download some software from Adobe. So in order to do that, you're just going to come to this experience.adobe.com/hash/downloads/content software distribution EN AEM cloud. I will include all of these URLs in the description of the video as well. If we scroll down just a little bit, we're going to find the AEM SIF add-on. Make sure that the SIF add-on that you choose is compatible with your SDK that you're running for your normal Adobe Experience Manager author server. And just go ahead and accept those end user license agreements and hit download. I, of course, have already downloaded this, but when you do download this for the first time, it's basically just going to give you a zip file. Let me go ahead and put this in a different view. It's going to give you a zip file like this. You're going to unpackage that, and you're going to find that you have a folder with a README and then 2 FAR files. One of these is for the Publish server. One of these is for the author server. Make sure that you grab the author one for this tutorial. In future videos, I will cover setting up AEM from scratch. I will also cover how to set up the Publish instance as well as the Dispatcher server. For the purposes of today, we're just going to work with Adobe Experience Manager Cloud Author Server and then integrate with SIF. So all you need to do once you have downloaded this package here or the zip file and then unpacked it is that you're just going to go ahead and, assuming you've already got your Adobe Experience Manager running for the first time, obviously you're going to have a AEM author or something similar, some folder like this. And that's going to generate a CRX Quick Start folder. This is a folder which basically defines everything about your current running instance. And so in order to actually provide the update that's going to allow us to integrate with Commerce, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file here, or excuse me, a new folder called the install folder. So when you set up your author server for the first time, this install folder is not going to be present. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our AEM. We're going to stop our AEM server once it starts and gets all set up and then shows us the login screen. And then we're going to stop it. We're going to create an install folder, much like I have here. And then all you need to do, once you have your install folder, is just drag your new downloaded author FAR into that install folder. So in my case, I'm actually running the Commerce Integration Framework and some form adaptive or adaptive forms extension as well. But all you need to do for SIF is just drag this into your install folder. Now, once you do so, you of course want to restart AEM. I always use the startup commands for running AEM. So I drag my entire author folder onto a terminal window, and then I go ahead and enter a command, which I will show you right here. This command right here is the startup command for AEM. I'm going to include this in the description of the video as well. Depending on which version of Java you're running, this particular flag here may not be accepted, in which case your author server is not going to start. Just delete this flag and you'll see that your author server will start. Once again, I'll include this in the description of the video. All right, coming back to our AEM server, assuming that we're now running our author server, we have our install folder defined, and we've now stopped and then restarted our author folder with the SIF FAR in the install folder. We then can run AEM, and we can see that our SIF options are now available. So in order to test this, all you need to do is launch your author server, go to Tools, click on Cloud Services, and scroll down until you see one of these cloud icons that says SIF Configuration. Assuming you've done everything properly up to this point, this button will now be available. If I click on this, I should see that since my Venia store code has been pushed to my author server, it's been bundled and compiled up to the author server. I now have the option of selecting this commerce option from the the configuration location within AEM. So I will go ahead and just open this up for a second. You're going to see that by default, I have nothing set here. And I do have a few key value pairs or text inputs that are already defined for me. The problem is that I need to actually define what GraphQL endpoint I'm going to use to talk to my store. Typically with Adobe Commerce, you have another website that you're using where you're actually storing all of your product information, because within Adobe Experience Manager, you really just want to contain only the things that are relevant for actually running the CMS itself and not user-generated content or other content. So we need to actually pull in data from Adobe Commerce to showcase within AEM. So in order to do that, we need to define a GraphQL endpoint that's going to be used for this GraphQL client here. This can be done by going to localhost 4502 or whatever port you're running on, and then going to the path system console config manager. From here, assuming that you have the install folder set up in the SIF FAR in that install folder, you can go ahead and do a text search for SIF GraphQL client configuration factory, what you see right here. And this will actually find it for you. At this point, you're going to go ahead and define your GraphQL endpoint. So one thing I'll note is that during setup, prior to recording this tutorial, I did define my endpoint in the default option, but for whatever reason, I'm not seeing it show up. So I'm just going to highlight that you have multiple options for where your endpoints are going to go. Actually, in this case, there is already a Venia one, but we're going to set up our own. So if you're having issues with default, just go ahead and add it to another one of these. You want to just go ahead and place the data that you see exactly as I have it. Pretty much when you start up this config manager and then you open this for the first time, you're going to notice that this is going to be different, but the rest of this is going to be the same. So all you need to do for this basic tutorial around setting up with Adobe Venia, Adobe Commerce, is just to provide this URL in this particular text field. The rest of this information is pretty standard and we don't need to change it for the purposes of this demo. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. and this will now save for me. Coming back to my tab that has my actual CIF configurations, if I open up the properties of this commerce here, I can see that I can choose endpoint 2, and it actually shows my GraphQL endpoint. The other information here is basically just default information. You don't need to change this for most setups, but I'll just go ahead and show you what it has so you can compare that for yourself. This root category identifier is just something that I've seen in multiple projects and is something that you typically won't need to change. I'm going to go ahead and save. So now at this point, I've set up Adobe Experience Manager for the first time. I built the vanilla code to my author server, and I've also stopped my author server and created an install folder with my CIF var that now allows it when it starts again, when the author server starts again, I now have options to actually integrate with Commerce. Principally, I do so by going to System Console Config Manager, searching for CIF GraphQL, going to the option for GraphQL Client Configuration Factory, and defining my vanilla URL in the GraphQL service URL. If you're working on another project, this URL is going to be different. If you're working on a project where the GraphQL endpoint is protected, you may also need to define some default HTTP headers with information that will allow you to actually get into that, to actually make requests against that GraphQL endpoint. So now at this point, we can actually go back to our author server. We can just hit that home screen, go ahead and go to sites. And assuming that you've installed the code and set up the CIF properly, you're going to now have options to actually go into your pages and start using the CIF framework. There are components that are not normally available with Adobe Experience Manager, such as the product list component and a number of other components as well. All you need to do from here is just go ahead and interact with one of these, and it's actually going to pull up a category selection picker if you're using this component. And so what you're going to see now is I have access to actually browse my entire product catalog. And I can literally click on any category and I can showcase it just like this. So that's how you will integrate the Adobe Experience Manager with Adobe Commerce, principally using the vanilla store. But everything we've seen here, you can apply to whatever projects that you happen to be working on. So thank you for watching.